Okay, number 7. It's a pretty long problem. This actually was the problem on last year's Common Core exam. An animal shelter spends $2.35 per day to care for each cat. Important piece of information, right? $2.35 for a cat and $5.50 per day for a dog. So I like to write all my information down so that I can see it in an orderly way. Pat noticed that the shelter spent $89.50 caring for cats and dogs on Wednesday. So a total of $89.50 on Wednesday. Write an equation to represent the possible number of cats and dogs that could have been at the shelter on Wednesday. Well, let's see. We need some let statements. Let's represent cats with a C and dogs with a D. If I want to make sure that I have money on one side of my equation, money on the other, I need to set up one equation that is going to multiply the cost of a cat, and it has to be multiplied by the number of cats that were present. So it should make sense to you that we would take $2.35, which is the price per cat, multiply it by the number of cats, plus the price per dog, which is $5.50, times the number of dogs, which we represent by D, because we don't know how many dogs were there. That should equal the total cost that was spent that day. Now, the next part of the question says, we've checked this off because we've written our equation to try to figure out how many cats and dogs were there. Pat said that there might have been 8 cats and 14 dogs at the shelter on Wednesday. Are Pat's numbers possible? Well, in order to figure out if his numbers are possible, we want to substitute in 8 for C, 235 times 8 plus 550 times the number of dogs, which he says is 14. That should come out to equal $89.50, the cost that was spent for caring dogs on Wednesday, cats and dogs on Wednesday. So 235 times 8 is going to give us $18.80 plus 550 times 14, which was 77, equals $89.50. And when I add these together, I think we get $95.80, which does not equal $89.50. So what we need to say, it says, are Pat's numbers possible? We need to make sure that we answer that question. No, Pat's numbers are not possible. Because the amount spent, the amount of $89.50 spent does not equal the amount spent for 8 cats and 14 dogs. Now, anytime throughout this problem here, I know it's a long one, you could pause it and figure out some things on your own and check to see if you have the same thing that I have. Now later, Pat found a record showing that there were actually a total of 22 cats and dogs at the shelter on Wednesday. So if we wanted to figure out another equation, that might be helpful in helping us figure out how many cats and dogs actually were at the shelter on Wednesday. This is actually asking us just for how many cats. So if I look at this, a total of 22 cats and dogs, that would lead me to write another equation. So I would have C plus D equaling 22, which represents the cats plus the dogs equaling the total number of cats and dogs. Our other equation is up here. We have 235C plus 550D equals 8950. Now, these are the kind that you have struggled with all year. It's our system of equations. Remember, 2 equations, 2 unknowns should give us 2 answers. We solved systems of equations in different ways. We used elimination, we used substitution, and we graphed them. Most of the time when you see 2 equations set up like this, where the letters are right on top of each other and the equal sign is in the same place in both equations, we use elimination. We want to make sure that we can eliminate one variable. So if we multiply one of the equations to get exact opposites on one variable, that will help us get a 0 when we add them together. So what I'm going to do is choose to eliminate the C. Now again, if you would like to try this, pause it and try it and see if you get the same answer I do. I'm going to choose to multiply by negative 2.35 so that when I add it to a positive 2.35, those will eliminate and we will just have an equation with D's in them. We need to make sure that we multiply every part of our equation by that negative 2.35. And when I do that, I end up with negative 2.35C minus 2.35D equals negative 5170. And I want to add these together. And you'll notice these cancel out. They are exact opposites. So our C's go away. And I have 550D minus 235D, which gives us 3.15D equals 8950 minus 5170 is 3780. Divide by 3.15. And D gives us a value of 12. We go back to the question though. It asks us how many cats were at the shelter on Wednesday. We found out that there were 12 dogs. So that will tell us that we can easily figure out cats by substituting the number of dogs into our original equation of C plus D equals 22. So C plus 12 equals 22. When I subtract 12 from both sides, I get a value of 10 for my cats. So there were 10 cats at the shelter on Wednesday. Please make sure that you understand these systems of equations. They're not difficult. You just need to read and set them up properly and choose either elimination or substitution based on how your equations are set up. All right, make sure you ask me if you have any questions on these.